Political parties are key parts of democracy. When it comes to voting, many people make their decision on the basis of party, their inspiring logos, highly distinctive slogans and leaders. But who chooses the leaders of these parties? Well, that's decided by a few initial hurdles by the party members. This wasn't always the case though. In fact, in British politics, ordinary party members were, until relatively recently, largely uninvolved with the election of leaders. Either leaders emerged, chosen by a magic circle of party bosses in secret, or by a vote of MPs. However, over time this system was rejected as elitist and unrepresentative of the party, and ordinary party members were given the final say of who's in charge. So what's the problem with doing this? Well, it comes down to a popular theory of how to win elections, let's call the centre ground theory of power. According to this theory, voters range from left to right, some on the edges, but most in the middle. In order for, say, a left-wing party to win an election, they need to attract not only voters on the left, but floating or swing voters here in the centre ground. The problem with party members choosing their leader is that most people are not members of parties. It's not, by definition, a normal thing to do, yet winning an election means winning support from people who are normal. If all these non-normal party members vote for a leader who represents their politics, then this leader will also have non-normal politics, and the normal people, those centre ground voters, won't support him or her at election time. This theory seems to lead to two conclusions. One, the idea that after voters have rejected a left-wing or right-wing candidate, you should give them someone more left-wing or right-wing is madness. And two, the whole idea of party democracy has a contradiction within it. People join parties to see political change. But this can only happen if the party gains power at elections. But the more power a party gives to those inside it, the less chance of winning those elections. There are a number of possible solutions to the problems of oh so lovely party democracy. Option number 1. Get someone who has centre ground politics and who might win over the normal voters in the centre ground, and then get them to pretend to be more left wing or right wing than they are. Members will vote them leader, and then once in place they can reveal that they are not in fact super left wing or right wing at all. The problem with this is the pretending. Normal voters will be suspicious because although now these candidates are saying they're centre ground, a minute ago they were telling members in the leadership election they were super left wing or right wing. Voters might not be convinced they're really the centre grounder they claim to be. Option 2 is to be just as non-normal as the party members and then do the pretending once you've won the leadership election. The problem with this is it's double pretending to have centre ground politics now and pretending that you were pretending earlier when you were telling party members you were left wing or right wing like them. Option number 3, try and stock your party full of people whose politics are in the centre ground. This way, when they vote for what they believe in, it'll also be what the centre ground voters believe in, and you'll have a centre ground winning leader in place. In a way, this is what the Labour Party tried to do by opening up its party leadership election to those not in the party. The problem with this approach is it's hard for parties to recruit centre ground voters. To explain why, imagine a world where people are divided into Star Trek and Star Wars fans. Some love princesses and Sith Lords, and some love bald guys in pyjamas who spend their time trying not to be racist to aliens. Who's more likely to pay lots of money every year to join the Star Wars fan club? It won't be the hardcore Trekkers, or those in the middle, it'll be the Star Wars loyalists. It's the same with political parties. It's the hardcore fans, not those who sometimes like you and sometimes like your rivals, who are most likely to join up. Also, the incentives for political involvement are different depending on where on the political spectrum you are. If your politics lie in the centre ground, the system works in your favour with the political parties competing to represent what you believe in. There's less of an incentive therefore to give up your time, money and evenings to party activity. But if your beliefs are on the edges of the political spectrum, you won't see the system represent your views without effort. In other words, you can expect someone to be more willing to commit time and money to a party the further their political beliefs are from the centre ground. To sum up, you won't have swing voters signing up to be members of your parties, even for just £3, because, well, they're not the hardcore fans, and 2, they don't need to in order to see their politics represented. Option 4. Convince your members that things like values and principles don't matter, and to vote on the basis of who they think will win over the centre ground voters. The problem with this is, it's weird. The way elections work in a representative democracy is that you vote for the person or party who most represents you and the things you believe in. But in this weird election, people are meant to vote not for what they believe in, but for what they guess other people will believe in. Not only does this seem wrong, but it's a task they might not be too great at. So, what to do? All the solutions so far involve getting leaders to lie, either sooner or later, schemes to save a party by getting people who don't support the party to decide its fate, or asking people to vote for leaders and things they don't believe in. However, there is another option which gets around these problems, but before we get to it, it helps to know about a little known theory from political science called the special law of curvilinear disparity. Put forward by political scientist John D. May, this theory argues that you can put party supporters into 3 groups: the party elite, the middle elite and the non-elite. The party elite are the MPs and political professionals whose job depends on elections to safeguard or further their careers. The middle elite consists of loyal party voters, party members and local office holders. These are the volunteers, who we know from earlier are, if they're giving up time and money, more likely to be doing so because they're motivated by politics on the edges of the political spectrum. And finally, the non-elite are the swing or centre ground voters who vote or support the party to the extent that it lines up with what they believe. The different incentives for these three different groups creates, may argued, a curvilinear disparity, with elites and swing voters pushing the party to the centre and the middle elite pushing to the left or right. The thing is, when it comes to the middle elite, there's been a big decline in party membership in recent times. As parties have pursued centrist positions and moved away from party democracy, there's been fewer rewards for ideologically fervent types to join up. Commentators have argued that parties have been hollowed out, mere shells staffed by professional organisers, paid for by big donors. The Labour leadership campaign, however, saw the return of large numbers of this middle elite to the party, who, alienated by centralisation and the winning of elections, had left the party over the past 20 years. This sounds like a good thing, but May's theory suggests that the more members you have in the party, and the more power you give them, the balance in the party will shift, pulling the party away from the centre ground where most voters are and where elections are won. If you're one of the many voters in the centre ground, this is bad news, as you'll have fewer parties competing to represent you. So what is the solution? Well, option number 5 is quite simple. Don't give party members a say. It might sound awful to abolish party democracy, but it's worth remembering that political parties exist ultimately not to represent those who pay fees to take part in leadership elections, but to represent voters in Parliament. So if you do want party members choosing the leader, leave it to those party members whose positions depend on convincing large numbers of these voters every 5 years to support them. I wonder where you could find such a group of people.